Hello, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Raymond Nicolet Trust Podcast. My name is Gavrilo Nikolic, and every month I bring you inspiring conversations about the future of education, science, and philanthropy from world top academics, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and philanthropists. My guest today is Goran Mashanovic. Goran is a professor of Group IV Photonics at the University of Southampton in the UK. Goran graduated from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering at the University of Belgrade. He specialized in the field of optoelectronics during his bachelor studies. He then completed his PhD at Surrey University. During his PhD studies, he focused on silicon photonics. Goran started academic career in Belgrade, and his academic career up until now followed him to Surrey and all the way then to Southampton, where he has been a lecturer since 2012. If you're curious to learn more about Goran and his work, you need to listen to this episode. In just a moment, the one and only Goran Mashanovic. Goran, welcome to the RNT podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for your kind invitation. It's a pleasure.
It's great talking to you, especially after exchanging a few thoughts on the nice background you have. I think I like all the pictures, if not all the 90% of them, because one or two I cannot actually see from where I'm standing here, but I guess situation will look like differently in reality.
Yeah, this is my office, so it's like a small gallery. So I have some of my own photos, some of photos from my friends, and some posters, as you can see.
Great that you're already telling us where are you as we speak, but can you locate us more closely in terms of geographical location? Where are you as we speak?
Yes, so I'm at the Optoelectronic Research Center, University of Southampton. That's on the Channel, La Manche, as some people call it. Um, That's 1 hour, 20 minutes from London by train, about 80 miles. Sorry, we're doing miles here, so you just multiply that by 1.6. Um, it's a city of 250,000 people, roughly. University center. We also have a good football club here, so hopefully it will stay in the Premiership.
I think that reference to football club is arguable. We'll leave that for some other discussion. It will take too long. Let us then turn to how your career started and maybe ask you a basic question. What prompted you actually to study electrical engineering in the first place?
Yeah, I loved physics in primary and secondary school as well as maths. I got several awards in Serbia in those primary and secondary school competitions. I really loved those subjects. And then at the end of my secondary school, I was thinking, what should I study? And the first thought was theoretical and experimental physics. But at the end, I decided to go to the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, which at the time was really the best faculty in former Yugoslavia, and many of my friends from grammar school in Valjevo, where I finished my education, went there, as well as many friends that I met at these competitions. So I first started in the first year as at the Department of Computer Science. That's interesting, and then I switched to um, physical electronics. I thought that some kind of applied science would suit me better, engineering, making some real devices or designing them. So that was really the main drive. So still a lot of physics, a lot of maths, but in some kind of applicable manner, you try to utilize those physical principles to make devices.
Now you need to get into your role of professor slash lecturer and to tell me and also our audience what are optoelectronics and what actually hides behind this notion.
Yeah, I'll introduce that term as well as silicon photonics because you also mentioned that in the introduction. Uh, it's really interesting. I travel quite a lot, and then you get taxi, and taxi driver asks you, "Oh, what do you do?" And for a living. And I said, I do photonics, and really rarely anyone knows what photonics is. But when you mention optics, then people have some ideas. So first of all, of course, they think, oh, are you doing some glasses or goggles or those type of things. But when you mention optical fibers, really majority of people are familiar with that because of fast internet and things. So we basically do similar optics, but not in optical fibers, in optical cables, but optics on a chip. So to describe that, further, we know how electronics is prevalent in today's life. We have electronics devices all around us. We have silicon chips, which basically electronics is made of silicon mostly, in our TVs, cars, mobile phones, everywhere, in our domestic appliances. So what we are trying to do now is to introduce photonics chips. Instead of electrons that travel in those chips, now we use photons, and light is composed of photons. So basically that's the explanation, and there are a lot of applications where we can use photonics. And there is a coin like photonics is electronics of the 21st century. So we'll see more photonics in our devices that we use on a daily basis.
That's quite revolutionizing thing, if I could comment it in that way. Do you see the future for it in the years to come? Do you think that actually that might, let's say, reduce the current chip war between major political forces on this planet?
Well, you use the same facilities more or less for photonics chips as for electronics. I mean, that's one of the nice things, that you don't need to invest more to get new facilities for photonics chips. So basically, we can use what's already there. But when you think where photonics or photonics chips can be applied, that's in modern communications, in data centers. So we know the data centers are consuming more and more power. And there is this new trend where they're built in polar circle because of cooling down and using free energy. So it's not sustainable. So to reduce the power consumption, we need to use optics. Also, let's say for many sensors, environmental sensors that can measure levels of carbon dioxide or methane or some other gases, you can make some very compact, lightweight, cheap sensors. I guess that your audience have heard about Internet of Things, where we have sensors everywhere. Again, you need mass manufacturing. Those sensors must be small and must be really, cheap. And that's where silicon comes in. Autonomous cars, all those sensors, to inform the system where the car should go, where to stop, things like that. Again, silicon is a major candidate, and those are all the fields that my research group and some others around the world are working on.
It's quite fascinating, and I personally wish you best of luck with that, and look
Thank
forward to hearing more about that in the years, maybe not even years, maybe months to come, because it's quite a topical issue.
Yeah,
So we'll be
absolutely. I
definitely
mean, we
hearing a
will
lot
see.
about
We
it.
are already see some products, and we will see them. Computer links, let's say between microprocessor and memory, that will be optical in a few years' time.
But let us now turn to another, let's say, side of the coin. And what brought you to UK was science, but obviously you have been living in the UK for a while. But let's maybe start on that journey or embark on that journey by a simple question. How did you actually wind up in the UK?
Yeah, that's also an interesting story, and I really think that all things in our life are happening for a reason. So it's not a random sequence of events. Uh, my wife and I had decided to go to Canada, Toronto, and while we were waiting for our visas, that was summer 2000. A friend of mine, colleague from Faculty of Electrical Engineering, who was doing PhD at the University of Surrey, he called me and said, "Oh, there is an advert in Photonics Group, and you should apply." And of course, my immediate response was, "No, we're going to Toronto. That's it." So he called me for the second time after a week or a couple of weeks, and said, "Well, look, you need to translate your diplomas, get all the documentation. Why not to do it now and just send those and apply for the job. And again, I didn't do anything. When he called me for the third time after, again, a couple of weeks, then I said, okay, I'll do something about it. So I applied for the job. I got the job. And then we decided, I mean, I was still not serious. I thought, okay, maybe spend a few months, see, England, because we never thought we would end up in England. And then we came and we really liked it. And since then, we haven't moved. My wife actually has never been in Canada. 6 months after we arrived to the UK, I was traveling back to Belgrade. I returned our visas to Canadian Embassy, and I said, "Well, thanks a lot, but we're happy in England." So that's how it all started, and I can really say we've been very, very happy here. It's a great environment, very cosmopolitan, good schools, beautiful countryside. And professionally, it's been a great journey, great facilities, and very nice colleagues that I've learned a lot from.
That's nice to hear. On that journey from University of Surrey, you actually went to Southampton. But bearing in mind my limited geographical knowledge of England, but I must admit I did some research also to figure out where Surrey is located. What
Yeah.
prompted you actually to change the pictures town of Guildford in the vicinity of London with Southampton? That is actually a port city, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So what actually prompted you to change one beautiful location, small city, with another one that you also said in the beginning is quite nice?
Yeah, I mean, I must say that we haven't moved from Guildford, where University of Surrey is based. We still live there, so I commute on a daily basis. It's 1 hour drive. So I work in Southampton, but we still live in Guildford. Southampton University, or Optoelectronic Research Center, is the best photonic center in the UK and one of the best in the world. So for our group to grow, to get more funding, to get more collaborations and more research outputs, we really have to change. Excuse me. And since we arrived here 11 years ago, we really flourished. So the group at that time had 13, 14 people. Now we have more than 50. A lot of research grants, a lot of papers that we published every year, many collaborations that we have established. So it's really ideal environment for our group. Also, here we have the best electronics department in the UK, and we work with them a lot. And there are fiber groups, optical fibers that, and glasses. So we just fit nicely. The clean room is one of the best in Europe, and there are also 100 laboratories that we can use. So it's just a perfect environment. I mean, I visited many other universities, including MIT and Harvard, collaborate with them. And our facilities are literally on par with them. I mean, when they visit us, they're nicely surprised what we have here. And I always am very proud when I have visitors and when I invited to come here and see these facilities, because they can see that we can do a lot of stuff. So 90% of our chips are made actually here in Southampton.
Oh, wow, that's quite fascinating to learn. And maybe related to that you mentioned that you also commute. How does a life of commuting university professor look like? I know you're a lot in lab, but when you combine it with lecturing and everything else you're doing, including under the sunny weather currently, which I did not expect to see, I see that through your shades, actually, sun is arising in the UK, and that's not something I guess you see every day. So maybe in combination of all of that, what would you say? How does life of university professor look like? Maybe not on a daily basis, because that would be too much of an ask, but like just in general, how do you find it?
Yeah, I mean, these days, if you had asked me that question 20 years ago, I would have answered differently. It changed a lot, and it's a very dynamic job. So I like to start very early, and I come to the office very early, and of course you avoid traffic and so on. And during my journeys, I don't waste time. I listen some good podcasts and so on. So you always try to learn something. Um, but it's a very demanding job, and people usually don't realize that. When I speak to friends, even here and especially the continent, they say, "Oh, you have long holidays, summer holiday or winter holiday and so on." But actually, it's 24/7 job to sustain level of research. And my main job is in research. You need to bring money. You need to write research grants. You need to compete with other people. So it's a huge task, especially in this financial climate. Secondly, I teach a lot. I teach in year 1, 2, 3, MSc. I even teach in Belgrade as a visiting professor. So a lot of effort. I mean, if you want to do teaching properly, you need to prepare well. Uh, and of course, there are a lot of admin duties and a lot of management. So it's a really demanding job, but it's exciting job. It's dynamic job. It's never boring. And I feel every morning I feel excitement. I can't wait to get to my office and the labs and see my PhD students and postdocs and to go to the lecture theater and actually to say to my students what we are doing, certain things and why we're doing them, what's the purpose, what's the application. So it's a great job. I mean, I hope that was a good advert.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say as a concluding remark on that part of your CV, if I could put it that way, and that would be a hope to express the hope that Southampton is currently, University of Southampton is currently actually employing someone, because you just did a great sales pitch slash ad for all potential colleagues of yours coming to the UK. Speaking about your line of work, lecturing, research, and innovative stuff you're working on. I wanted to take a few minutes of our conversation to dedicate it to something for which you were actually awarded, and that's about innovation in lecturing. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about those awards, and then also, as a part of that discussion, tell us a bit more on why innovative lecturing can actually prompt youngsters to become more creative.
Yes, so as a member of the Optoelectronic Research Center, actually I don't need to teach. As I said, my main job is research, but I'm very passionate about teaching, about education. And I think that we should really try to encourage younger generations, as you said, to be creative, to think out of the box, to learn not just basic things about certain technologies or principles or theory and all of that, but how to work within a group, within a team, how to be effective, how to manage things. And I've um, I've done MSc course, not just PhD, but at the University of Surrey, I also done MSc course on innovation in higher education, teaching, and I've implemented many things in my own teaching. Um, I'll just give a few examples. When I get kind of constant feedback from students how they are doing, I adjust my teaching according to that. Um, I have many kind of hands-on sessions. I've introduced several modules here in Southampton where students are designing their own chips. So even in year 2, we teach them how to use commercial software used in industry, how to design their own photonics circuits. We fabricate them here and they characterize them in the labs. So a lot of practical work. So once they graduate, they can have all these points in their CVs, and actually they can do straight away some practical work in industry or in academia. It's also very important that students effectively learn from each other. So I construct my sessions such that peer learning is happening. Because what usually happens is some terms or some techniques or some kind of basic principles are very well known to me. I've been using them for decades and I've been teaching about that again for years. But for students, sometimes, actually quite often, is more effective that they learn from their peers because they're on the same level and their language is probably better than mine in terms of explaining basic principles. So that's what I also encourage. And I always tell students, it's great that you have these facilities and pre-recorded lectures and everything that you can find on the internet, but you should come to the lecture theater because that's where learning is happening. And I got several awards, as you mentioned, at University of Surrey and here at Southampton as the best lecturer and most innovative lecturer and things like that. So I'm of course very proud of that.
I guess not only myself, but also our audience would be curious to know if that actually prompted more students to come to your classes and how the theater looks like. Is it overcrowded or there's still
Yeah,
enough
look,
places for everyone?
I teach several modules, as we say here, or several courses which are not compulsory. So students need to sign up for them. And they're very popular and they students really enjoy and the feedback from students is excellent. I mean, always one of the best in the faculty. So that's how I see that they value what we do. And, you know, in personal conversation, of course, they are more free to tell you what they think about teaching and learning, and they really appreciate the effort. And it's enormous effort. It's really huge effort to you know, invest your time and everything, you know, to make engaging lectures. We also developed some virtual labs so students can actually practice in a virtual world before they come to the actual experimental lab, and that also helps. So they are more effective when they actually do it.
That's quite fascinating. And I think on the flip side, because you're also teaching, let's say, optional courses, not only that they are more engaging, but they are also more grateful that you're spending so much time and energy investing in something that is for them optional. And for you, on the other flip side, if I could put it that way, it's also rewarding to see that they're actually there because they're interested in stuff and not because it's obligatory for them to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Goran, really nice discussion, but we simply need to move to the closing of our interesting conversation. And against that background, and what I actually what we put in the conversation so far, I think it would make sense to also focus on the future and to ask you one really difficult question. That is, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Um, on ski slopes, golf courses, and tennis courts. No, I mean, I'm joking, of course. I'll do all of that, but I'll stay in academia. I really enjoy this, and I would like to make further contribution to research, but also to teaching. It inspires me when I see that our former students are doing so well, both in academia and in industry, and that is what drives me really to stay here. It's very refreshing when you have daily conversations with young people who are enthusiastic, who ask sometimes really tough questions, and that you know, keep you always, you know, on the front foot. You need to think forward. You need to uh, learn more. And I always say that every day I learn something new from my colleagues and also from students. So um, I don't see myself leaving, you know, academia. I'll stay here for a while.
Is that the single most important thing you love in your vocation, that you actually learn something new every day?
I would say that's interaction with clever people, uh, not just young people, but of course I really like to talk to students, but also with some great colleagues who are so supportive and who like to share their knowledge and expertise with you. Uh, you know, attending conferences where you see some great minds around the world, you know, contributing to the science. I think that's great. That's so interaction with people, really.
Bearing in mind that you're professor of science, we simply need to ask you one last question, and that is to finish the following sentence. Science is important because
It pushes the boundaries of understanding of our world. And that, of course, that can help in many ways, you know, to make our life easier and to understand what's going on around.
Warren, just before we finish, any last words? Anything else that we forgot to mention? I don't think so, but it's always a good thing to ask another
Yeah,
side.
yeah. I mean, I would just like to first to thank you for inviting me for to this podcast. It was great to talk to you. I would just like to say to everyone who's watching us that you really need to follow your dreams and to follow what you're interested in. It's much more important that you enjoy what you're doing than to think how much are you paid and what kind of benefits you can get. I know it's important, but there is no salary, there is no money that can pay for the satisfaction when you're doing something you're truly enjoying. So try new things, always learn something new. Uh, your life or our lives shouldn't be static. If you don't improve, you will decline. There is no question about that. So, and there is opportunity every day to learn something new. You met someone, try to listen to these people, and you will be surprised, how much wisdom there is in everyone around us. So I will finish with that.
Warren, thank you very much for those, but also all wise words that you shared with our audience during this interview. And thank you very much for being my guest on the RNT podcast.
Yeah, it was pleasure. Good luck with everything you're doing for the trust. I wish you every luck.